All right, thanks so much. So I'm Rosa Maimi, Director of Engagement and Membership here at AGU. I think I've met many of you, but some of you may be new. I know we're coming into a new season of newly elected folks, and as we've said in past calls, you all should feel after looking at the agenda if there are people in your sections who you think would benefit from hearing the agenda items. They are welcome to come at your invitation. So hello, everyone. We do have a packed schedule today, so why don't I turn it over to Amber to say a few things, and then we'll get into the meat of the meeting.
That's perfect. Thanks, Rosa. Hi, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Amber Levy, Vice President of Affiliation Engagement and Membership. It's nice to see you. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your partnership. We really, really appreciate it. As Rosa mentioned, we have a packed agenda, but I wanted to just highlight that we have recently received a lot of feedback from you, particularly at the recent council meeting. And Rosa and our team are going to go through the next steps that we're taking as a result of not just that feedback from the March council meeting, but the feedback that we also conducted throughout last year with some interviewing and some surveying and so on. So there's some things that, some new resources that we'll talk about today, and then some next steps and how we'll continue to engage with you based on that feedback. But just wanted to let you know we're hearing you, we're taking action, and we want to keep the conversation going. So I promise to keep it brief, so I'm going to go ahead and send it back to Rosa.
Thanks so much, Amber. We appreciate it. Why don't we look at the agenda that some of you probably saw earlier when we sent out the notification. So we're going to talk about next steps in terms of section leader feedback, as Amber mentioned, and dig into a couple of pieces of feedback. Can't do it all at once in one meeting, but we're going to keep talking you through the year to do that. Um, We'll talk about the information synthesis, which I'll get to in a second. We're going to ask you a poll question about ongoing engagement among this group and get your thoughts on the best way to do that. Then we're going to focus on a couple of areas of focus based on the feedback that you all have been providing. One talking about section structure examples that we have got a couple of people from a couple of sections. We're going to talk about how they do it as examples. And then we've got tools, resources, and updates. And then we're also going to hear from Lexi in our science policy government relations team and towards the end and open mic. So we're going to try and get through all of this, and I'll ask for forgiveness in advance in case I have to start doing time checks because there's so much to talk about. So as Amber mentioned, we have been looking at the information that has been collected, and we've been collecting ourselves information from section leaders. I know that you all had the opportunity in, I think there was the March section, I'm sorry, March council meeting to do some table discussions on some honed in topics. We got copies of those Google Sheets and actually have synthesized that information and layered with that information that from those of you who were with us last year, we've been doing some section leader journey interviews with selected sections. And the interesting thing is a lot of that information is aligning. So we want to make sure that we turn energy into action, your energy and your input into action. And one of the things I do want to reconfirm with folks, if we can go to the next slide, Josh. Remember, we came up with these from to statements based on feedback we got from you last year. So this is still works as our North Star as we look at the synthesized information. We got a lot of information from you. I do want to mention, we may come back to this, but some of the areas that we'll address from these from to statements as we talk later are reinventing the wheel, going from doing that to creating mechanisms to share practices within and across sections. Like I mentioned, we're going to have a couple of sections talking about some examples that they have, and we'll have some resources. Also, going from functioning as siloed entities to engaging in cross-section collaboration. We're going to, again, poll you and get some information on how to best do that. So I want you to, we may keep referring to this throughout the year, these from to statements, and point to how the synthesis and the information that we're responding to you on kind of tracks back to these items. So hopefully this still works as a guiding light we can always revisit. So let's go to the next slide. So, okay, so before we do that, we are going to do a poll. So what we want to do is, before Josh pulls that up, is we want to find out the best way for you all to continue engaging with each other. As you all who've done these meetings with us, you've heard me say we want to make space during this call to be a place to do that. I'm sure there are other ways. You all had an experiment last year of the council that included, having a space set aside. I think they were called community building sessions where you all kind of came together and did that. We want to keep that going, but want to kind of check in with you and figure out the best way to do that. At least, this won't be the only way, but one way to do that. So why don't you put up a poll that we're going to ask you, Josh, if you could put that up to answer. It's a very simple question. So every other month, this is a monthly call, every other month, should this section leader call be hosted and run by a designated section leader? So I'm going to ask that you all go ahead and vote. It looks like the voting is happening real time, or the results are happening real time. And I'm not sure how many people we have on the call. We have quite a bit. We'll give a few more seconds because I see it's still moving. Okay. Josh, do you want to end the poll and then just show the final results? So I think we're looking, Josh, have you done that? I don't see it moving, so I think we've done that. So 15% of you, you can see the numbers too. 4 out of 26 say yes, 46% say no, 38% not sure. Why don't we take a moment to talk about your thoughts on that, dig into that. So why do you think not? Why do you think yes? And are there other ideas that we can start surfacing here in a couple of minutes about what might work in terms of how to keep sharing information with each other? Who wants to jump in? I don't know who voted on what, so I don't know who to call on. So for those of you who said no, does anyone want to jump in and indicate why? Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
Okay, thanks everybody, and thanks for soliciting this feedback. I do strongly feel like cross-section discussions are useful, but I do feel like you you know you guys at AGU are in a good position to structure that for us. And so what I would say is maybe I think I see it something in the chat. Maybe part of the meeting could be that way, and also maybe I in the interest of not like reinventing the wheel of like turning it over to a section and being like do whatever you want, I feel like it's going to put undue pressure on the section leaders and it needs more structured format. Does that make sense? I'm
Yeah,
babbling, but that was my
no,
okay.
that totally makes sense. I appreciate that perspective. Does anyone else want to jump in? However you voted, yes, no, or not sure? Why were you not sure? Yeah, Janet.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I liked what we just heard from Amy, and I also like what's in the chat. I think it's been very useful to hear from other sections about specific issues, so if we can have something targeted, I think it makes us much easier. It makes it much easier for us to put aside some time aside to address that and to generate discussion around a specific issue like ECR events or whatever, or how we reach out to our sections, all these sorts of things that we all do.
Yeah, very good. And for those of you who can't see the chat, I know that some of you have already referred to it. I'll just read it real quickly. Christina has said maybe there could be part of the meeting, but not the whole meeting. Anyone else want to jump in with comments? Just give a couple more minutes to this. So what I'm hearing is targeted information, and I'm going to extrapolate that that would be based on the feedback that you all have been given all along, giving us all along. And that maybe part of this meeting, which we're doing today, could be devoted to that. Rachel, I see your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Just a quick sort of follow-up on the thoughts about how this works, like today's one, where we're going to be, Alison and I are going to be talking. And my feeling from that is if I wasn't one of the ones presenting, I would then know anecdotally in some detail how two sections were doing something. And I wouldn't have the faintest idea what the other 23 sections were doing, apart from my own. And I wouldn't have a clue what was normal. And if I didn't want to be a high achieving section, or so I think some aspect of enabling a bit more sort of spread of data to be collected, as well as the ones that are focused on, would be helpful. And then the other issue, this format really doesn't work well for discussion. It works for one person presenting, or it works for people like me and Janet who are willing to talk to everybody, even though we don't even know who all the everybody is. But there's also, I'm not sure we've even got half the section leaders here. So I think you need to factor that in.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, I would often watch these calls for information afterwards if I can't make them. But that's not the same as being able to contribute to them. So
Yeah. No, I think these are all really, really good points. So what I can say is that I think let us think about this some more and bring more discussion here with some examples of how we could do some of the things that you're doing. And I would love to know kind of after the fact, the way we're doing it today with a few sections, including Rachel kind of sharing what they do, if today's been useful as an example, right? So I think that will help. But yeah, let's keep figuring that out because we want to, we don't want to put a burdensome, kind of extra work, but also want to on you guys, but we also really want to hit the right spot because I know we've been trying for a while and I've been hearing that from you all. It's like, hey, we talked about this last year. Why didn't this come up? We can't do everything at once, but yeah, we have to obviously move and find ways to keep the discussion going that works for you. So we're going to probably keep talking about this and try a few things here and there. All right. So with that, I think Rachel and Allison, since you have the floor. So one of the things, this is kind of going back to the from to statements, right? And going to the synthesis of the information we have that you've provided. We heard from you based on a few comments from council and also in our looking at the section journey interviews that people want some feedback and some understanding of and examples of how should I structure my section. That could mean, how do you structure your committees? It could be, how do you make use of your executive committee? Obviously, we've got two sections here and we chose them because I know that you've been doing some thinking around it. Doesn't mean that others of you haven't. And then the other thing I want to mention before you start seeing this is that you'll see that a template kind of has been used to show this information. As you're looking at this, take in the information, the content itself, in terms of the structure, but also to Rachel's point about how do we talk across sections and it doesn't, asynchronously maybe, are these templates something that you may want to use, like Rachel and Allison have, to organize the structure of your own section, and then going a step from that to Rachel's point, how do we share that information more fully? Hopefully that made sense without seeing the information, but I'm going to stop talking. And Allison, I think your information is up first. So let's talk about atmospheric sciences and section structure.
Okay. Thanks, Rosa. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Steiner. I'm past president for Atmospheric Sciences section. So in our discussions, there had been a template going around, which I know a lot of the other section leaders have filled in about, general information about how people run their sections. So I'm going to give a quick overview and not spend that much time. I feel like it's actually probably better if we maybe have more discussions or questions from people. So in terms of the size, right? Atmospheric sciences, we're a large section. We have about 7,000 to 8,000 primary members and about 14,000 to 15,000 total members. So as a result of that, we have a lot of awards and we have a lot of committees that go with that. So the way we have historically run our executive committee is it includes the president-elect, and the past president. We have 2 secretaries. We have our early career committee chair on there. And then we also have a website coordinator who comes to the executive meetings as well. And that kind of, when everyone's there, it helps with kind of streamlining of information. We also do a running Google Doc of meeting agendas and meeting notes as we go. That way, if anybody misses something, they can easily see what is happening. Or also if there's something they want to discuss, they can add that to the agenda. In terms of annual meeting planning, we have a separate fall meeting program committee, which has a chair and 2 to 3 members on it, because again, it's a pretty big lift. We usually have about 100 sessions in atmospheric sciences. I think last year at AGU, we had about 110. So having a couple people to help with that lift in terms of the planning has been really helpful. Also for OSPA, we have a fairly large committee for that. We've continued to do OSPA and we've had some really energetic chairs who've managed to keep that program going. I think last year it was somewhere like around 950 student or early career student posters to judge. So we have a chair of that committee and then another 2 to 3 members, which is helpful for splitting up all these sessions to try to get judges for all of those. In terms of social media, I know some of you have separate social media. We usually have our website coordinator handle that. So that would be website updates and any social media updates. And then we also have a lot of early career events. So in general, we have a very large early career committee. Usually it's somewhere between 8 to 12 people. We ask that the chair agrees to at least 1-year term of service because they're part of the executive committee. And different events are planned in different ways. So some the committee plans themselves. So for example, at the annual meeting, they do a lunch and they organize a town hall where they invite program managers to talk about funding. And then the executive committee, we do an early career networking event where we manage that separately. For awards, that leads to 4 separate committees. We have a fellows committee, we have an early career award, we have a mid-career award, a service award, and those all have separate selection committees. And then we also have 3 named lecturers, which are decided upon by the executive committee. And the executive group meets about once a month or so throughout the year. In terms of other section-led activities, we also have a canvassing committee, which is made up of about 5 to 8 people. And a lot of times there are people who have served on the fellows committee before, and we try to rotate them onto the canvassing committee to develop nominations for the fellows and also our other section awards. In terms of in EOS contact, we actually have a subject editor at EOS who we appoint for a 3-year term. So that's a member of the community. So it's another service potential opportunity for people within the section. And then we send out a newsletter approximately monthly. And I think, do we have a second slide? We do, right? Yes, there we go. Thanks. So we have started setting up some standard operating procedures so we can have some carryover of information as we do turnovers every year with our changes in our executive committee. So that includes like a running list of resources where we've been tracking historical meeting minute notes and newsletters, invite lists, like for a lot of the events that we organize, committee lists and other forms that are helpful. We've also developed clear roles and responsibilities for everyone who's on the executive committee, as well as some standing operating procedures with timelines. And this we found this year, Amy and I found this was helpful as, sometimes I feel like when you come in as president-elect, you might get certain responsibilities and you have no idea what they're supposed to be. And then sometimes the president has certain responsibilities that no one has ever written down. So we sort of have developed some standard operating procedures with timelines for things like awards, the annual meeting preparation. We usually do several oral sessions. We do caregiver awards, reception planning, also with the annual business meeting and newsletter. And then also I've been finding it helpful to save email templates for common asks, like for example, committee invitations. One of the things that we've tried to do is also standardize terms of service on these committees. So what we found sometimes when people be asked to be on a committee and they might still be on it 10 years later if they wanted to be. So trying to keep track of those asks for committees and try to standardize the service to be about 3 years. And that took some time actually to implement in terms of rotating committee memberships. And I think that's all that I have, but I don't know. I see Amy is online if she wants to chime in anything else.
Yeah, sure. I'll take the opportunity to thank my past president for doing all this. It was awesome to inherit that. All of what Allison described here is in a document, including the meeting minutes and the committee lists that she spent a lot of time pulling together. So thank you, Allison. It's been
Problem.
super helpful already.
Great. And Rachel, I think we have similar information and format from you as well.
Yeah, hello, I'm Rachel Abercrombie. I'm the new president for seismology, so I'm learning as I go. We're a smaller section than atmospheric sciences, with about 2,500 people primary and a total of about 5,000 altogether. I just followed Alison's template here and tried to fill in roughly what we do, and some things I think we're changing and some things we're doing quite well. And I've found the whole finding out what every section's doing, especially ones of similar and different sizes, has been really helpful for me, just to realize, oh, I don't have to do it this way. You know, if I'm happy with doing it this way, great, but if it's not working, then you know, these are some other things to try. So our executive committee is just the three presidents, the secretary. We also have the 4-meeting program committee chair on there. And then we've got an increasing number of student and early career folk. I think we started off with 1 student and 1, you know, early career, meaning postdoc or assistant professor. And then it kind of got to 4, and this year we're now at 6, which is probably too many. And so we might want to be decreasing that. But we also got a lot of interest from people this year joining. So we're actually forming the first subcommittee we've ever had for the early career folk to do their work together. So maybe we're definitely, yeah, I'll be interested to talk to other people about how that sort of thing works out. The executive committee meets every couple of months or so. And then the annual meeting planning is done by the program meeting chair, and together with 1 other member who then rotates into being chair the following year. And we usually try now and have an early career person from the group on the executive committee join in with that. Our OSPA program is handled by our secretary, and they recruit 1 extra person to help with that, who we've had the same person for a number of years now, and that's great, but maybe, yeah, that they're not otherwise on anything other committees. All of our social media stuff is handled by the early career executive committee member, or now that's being handled by 2 or 3 of them, because they sort of share that work. And then the early career event organization at the annual meeting is also entirely handled by our early career exec committee. So they've never had a formal subcommittee, but I think in a sense they sort of operate as a subcommittee within the main executive committee, much the same way as the 3 presidents act as a sort of subcommittee when it comes to trying to find volunteers for the awards committees and things like that. At the annual meeting, we join with a joint cross-section trivia night and have different levels of involvement with that. And also we organize a lunch, early career lunch, which is basically aimed at sort of talking to people and getting some more senior people to come and talk to but very informal. And we also had some virtual events in past years. We've had some training events that were done. We've had an OSP, learning how, you know, getting people who won the OSPA in previous years to come and do something. These are all ideas that have come out of our earlier career team. The awards committees, we apparently have about 19 people altogether on these. 5 of them, we have the fellows, the early career award for seismology. We're involved with 2 cross the section committees, one for an instrumental scholarship and one for a service award. And we also have the section lecture. As I said, we tend to meet, you know, every couple of months, roughly. This year, we're actually starting to try and do some more intersection meetings, maybe once every few months. I'm not sure. We're having our first one in May with tectonic physics and geodesy. And I'm also reaching out to the folk in the Seismological Society of America, because I realize, not a typical section in some ways, because we have a really strong, vibrant professional organization, which really strongly overlaps with our section. And I mean, I'm a member of both, and I've served on the board of the other one, and most of us have done, most of us are involved with both of them at some time or the other. So we are very aware that there are things we don't want to do as part of AGU, because they are being handled perfectly well by SSA, and who wants to double the work. So we really need to think about how to support and work together to everybody's benefit. The other things we get up to, as I said, we're starting to form a subcommittee for early career. We also have a canvassing committee and a sponsorship committee, which has really been growing this year as we try and actually bring in a little bit of extra money. We don't have anybody, and never have that I know of, related to EOS. Neither do we have a web coordinator. Maybe the web page should be handled by the people doing the social media accounts. I'm not sure. And the newsletter is pretty simple. We try and get something out on a sort of quarterly basis. And that's just done by me with help from the others. So yes, next slide. So yes, following the push a few years ago before I joined, apparently the presidents then put together beginnings of a seismology standard operating procedures document, which we have, and it's never been finished. As I gather, these things haven't. And it has lots of questions in it, but it also has a lot of useful information. It also has resources, things like, all the account info we've got, but we also just have a lot of separate files which were passed to me in several emails by the previous president, with things like the meeting minutes and newsletters and invite lists and committee lists and who was on the committee last year and all of this kind of thing. And for timing, we tend to rely on Josh and other folk at AGU to say, you need to do this. Okay, right. Well, we'll do that then. The operating procedures start off with a chunk about the name, purpose, membership, and goals of the section. They then write out the roles and responsibilities for the executive committee, which includes the president, secretaries, and the one, I guess, in that case, student and early career members. Then most of what's in the rest of the operating procedures is the awards committees, something about communications, how we communicate with social media. We have multiple accounts, and the newsletters, and a bit on the how to recruit volunteers. That's all about making sure that they have a good spread and broad community representation. So that's pretty much where we are as a section. But again, I don't have much clue as to whether we're an overachieving or an underachieving section compared to other ones of our similar sort of size.
Yeah. Now, this is really, at least for me, very enlightening. I hope for others as well. But wanted to see if we wanted to open this up for discussion among others. I do want to acknowledge, I see a lot of feedback continuing in the chat about kind of how to structure these meetings going forward. So I want to circle back to that at some point, but whether it's in the open mic or right after this. But anyone have questions for Rachel and Allison, or do you all want to talk about kind of how you structure things? Or, I mean, the other question I have is, would it be helpful for us to, the royal us, for Josh, to help pull together templates for you all to pull something together like this that you just saw, in case it's helpful for you all to just kind of put things on paper? I'll stop there and see what you all have to say. Yeah, Amy.
Just Rosa, in reply to that question, yes, I think this is great, but I would say bite-sized pieces because I know Cheryl tried to solicit this information with like a very lengthy survey, and we looked at it and we were like, ah. So, like maybe one topic at a time would be useful, like this. I think this is manageable. I did have a question for Rachel. Uh, your website, you said you don't have a coordinator. Um, and maybe this is maybe a topic for for another conversation. There's a lot of pain around that, keeping them updated, and how do we do that on a volunteer basis? And you know, eh, anyway, what are we missing out on by not keeping them updated? What are ways to streamline those? Those are questions I have. And maybe Rachel, I don't know what how do you handle your website?
I think I'm the wrong person to ask, but the right person to join your question, because I've pretty much done the bare minimum or nothing. I've glanced at it occasionally and noticed that it does seem to be roughly up to date, but I haven't tried to add anything to it. I've basically, in terms of communications, limited myself to newsletters, the occasional thing in Connect, very occasional. And then mostly I just ask my early career folk who do the social media to say, can you post this when I see something coming on an email list or something else that looks interesting. And to be honest, I don't actually follow any of those accounts myself because I don't really use social media. So what am I missing and what can I do better too?
And thanks for that, Rachel. Before we go to the next hand raise, I do want to mention that a lot of what's been funneling through your feedback has been communication, just kind of writ large, right? In terms of how do you communicate with members? How do we add value to what they see on the websites? How do we, even technical issues, how do we keep them updated, that kind of thing. In a few minutes, one of our next slides is going to be about resources, and some of that is going to come up, but I just want to mention that, I think that there's probably a more of an umbrella way that we can be talking about this as opposed to hopefully valuable, but drips and drabs of kind of here's a resource here, here's a resource there. And Josh Weinberg, I may ask you to come back and talk about that in a couple of minutes after we get through these hand raises, but thought that was a good place to mention that. Krissa.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to bring up, and I think maybe this is what Amy was referring to. There were the template that Cheryl had provided a couple of years ago, anyway, the operating guidelines, which I think is kind of akin to an SOP. And I know that's on my list to update. We last updated it 2 years ago for informatics, but it is lengthy. It is also a really good resource, and I think does have kind of all the pieces of like roles and responsibilities, a lot of the aspects of like what we heard today in SOPs. I did like the idea of the email templates. That's something that I think I want to work in as well. So thank you for that idea. But I sort of remind folks that we do have a template for operating guidelines, which may be a useful tool for people to refer back to.
Great, thanks, Krissa. Janet, you're next.
Yes, this is great. Thank you, Rachel and Alison. This is really excellent because I just got so many ideas about, how we can organise things better and everything. We also maintain operating guidelines, which has just been invaluable for me and I'm sure for others who are coming in. And we update that annually. I just wanted to say briefly, we found it very hard to find a web coordinator and social media, and we have a great volunteer now. And so we reward that volunteer with paying for their registration for, either for Ocean Sciences or for the fall meeting. And I think that's, because they do a lot of work. So I think that's, I know that our current social media and webmaster really appreciates that.
Thanks, Janet. Danny.
Yeah, thanks. This has been really great. And I think that I think to follow on to what Krissa has just said about those templated operating guidelines that Cheryl shared years ago, if people are willing to put those together. I know some folks have, but I don't know how many she's ever gotten returned. But just having those to reference asynchronously to see how folks are doing, it doesn't take the place of what Rachel and Allison just did, because I think that's great in real time and just understanding the pitfalls and nuances of what's on the paper. But it's a huge help. And we generated ours by looking at somebody else's for reference as well. So I think just if people are willing to put those in one common area where you can peruse how other folks do it asynchronously, I think that would be a huge help.
Yeah, and I think we can certainly do that, have more shared resources. To your point, as long as people, are fine with sharing what they want to share, we can certainly facilitate that, help, refine templates like the ones you saw today. We can, coordinate with Cheryl as well on what she's seeking. So, Rachel.
Yeah, just a quick question that came up related to what was just said about permission to share stuff. Whenever we seem to want things like how to contact people, it's always all AGUs not allowed to share that, which I completely understand, but I was wondering whether it would be possible that we could actually have somewhere or something like when you sign up to be president or leader of the section, it just says, we assume you are happy to have your email contact detail, address of that of the president shared with the other leaders of the different sections. Please opt out if you're not. And then we can have an email contact list that's easily accessible to us all. So when we want to try and find the contact for the sections of, I want to ask a quick question of somebody from this section, it's just there.
Mm-hmm. No, I appreciate that. I think feel like that might be on the web or not, maybe not. I guess it's just a list of council, but not contact information. No, okay, right. Well, I know that there are privacy issues that we always have to talk about, but there's, and we try and connect people through Connect, and I know that has its own issues and lack of use. So, but I think, and Amber had a note in here somewhere. I don't know if you want to, Amber, generally talk about any of that kind of.
Yeah, no, I can chime in my notes there, but I'll just say out loud that, yeah, we have heard obviously from you all that Connect is not ideal for your needs and how you need to work with section members. So we are starting to explore alternatives. And as you can imagine, AGUs, since we're a large organization, when it comes to making sort of systems changes like that, it takes a bit of time for us to find the right fit. And then, of course, come back to you and make sure, hey, are we checking all the boxes, right? Is this the best path forward to make sure we get your input? So just know it's something that we are exploring, although we're not ready to move right this minute. It's on our radar for sure.
Thanks for that. Always the issue with an hour-long meeting, and we've got other folks who want to chat. So I'm going to stop there for this portion, but I think we've gotten some great feedback from you all in terms of how to structure these meetings. Looks like targeted topics, which of course we can pull from the synthesis of the feedback you've already gotten us, breakouts, and further solicitation of topics. So we'll look at that. And we'll also look at how we can share more broadly some of the information you saw from these two sections. So if it's okay, why don't we go to the next slide? Because we want to make sure you're aware of some resources. All right, so this also is based on hearing what you need, based on the feedback we've gotten, either through the council or through section leader calls or our section leader journey interviews. We've got a couple of new resources in place. So we have recorded PowerPoint, basically narrated PowerPoints that are tutorials in terms of these topics. We can do other topics, so just let us know. But these are the topics we brought up in your onboarding that we did earlier this year. And you'll see, and I think, they're in the community library. We're trying to figure out where you can find them. But anyway, topics on AGU Connect, speaking of which, section websites, another narrated PowerPoint on how to do a newsletter, for those of you who haven't done them yet, another one on surveys, another one on webinars. We can do other topics in terms of tutorials, but take a look at those, see if they're useful, see if the format is good. And if you're not aware of how to do these things, take a look and maybe they'll help you in that vein as well. The other resource we have is op-ed development. Given kind of where we are in the world today, we have gotten some feedback, and I'm trying to remember who. I think one particular section reached out to us asking how can you do, I think it was Sonia, how to do an op-ed, and getting some guidance and what will AGU support and allow. So what I'm going to ask is we have two Joshes, Josh McKee, to actually pop that resource into the chat, but you can also find it in the leadership community library. But Josh Weinberg, I'm wondering if you want to take a couple of minutes and talk about this. And I'll just say more generally, we want to talk more broadly about how we can help in terms of communications and how you communicate and use tools and resources to communicate with section members and with others. So this is just one resource to help meet an immediate ask and an immediate need, given kind of where we are in the world. So Josh Weinberg, do you want to chat for a minute?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Rosa. Yeah, we are very excited to help, you probably have heard this until you're blue in the face, but help you all meet the moment. It's a phrase that we're saying a lot these days because there are so many moments to meet. There are concerns across the board, obviously, in our community from what's happening on the federal side of things, how that's implicating and sort of having ramifications for academics, for business, the private sector. So there's a lot to cover, and there's a lot to help, hopefully, your colleagues and those who have power and our lawmakers and policymakers to shape their opinions and to really educate them. So what we wanted to do is have, and you'll see it in the chat, tools that can sort of help you collect your thoughts. There's a lot to cover, and obviously, the thing that is always challenging is not dumbing down any of this stuff because it's really important, but figuring out a way to make it clear, cogent, effective, not put any sort of spin or smoke and mirrors, but maybe find some way in to explain something and use some language that can sort of level set things so that if you're able to publish this in a local paper, let's say the local paper that's in Ann Arbor, or even get on the local television station that might be servicing Lawrence, Kansas, if you're in that academic community, or larger papers or specialty publications, there's a whole host of ways that you can make that really effective. And so we're here to help that and sort of walk you through all the things that are needed to sort of, like I said, collect what you're trying to comb through in your mind is the most important. And then we're definitely on call together with our policy colleagues and our membership colleagues here to help you fine tune that. And so we're always we're always happy to help. I came up with a new word, helpy. But that's something that is really, really key, and communication seems to be running throughout this whole meeting. And so this is obviously another form of that. And we're here, and as things develop and new issues arise, we can certainly help kind of make that something that you're able to communicate even better and wider. So happy to take questions or shoot me any emails. I'll put my my address here in the chat just in case not everybody has it.
Yeah. Amy, did you have a question?
Yeah, just is this accessible for the public, or is this only AGU members?
We're happy to make it. I mean, it's a benefit in some ways, that you're a member and you're a member leader, volunteer leader. So we want to kind of get it to you guys, first.
Okay.
But yeah, the more the merrier, sure.
Thanks.
All right. Does anyone have any quick questions for Josh on this? All right, so why don't we go back to the slide, and then there's a couple of quick updates that the other Josh has, and then we're going to have Lexi also talk about some other opportunities. So kind of our tools and resources discussion. So yeah, go ahead, Josh.
Okay, first off, we have the section committee rosters. Those were due on March 14th. We're still waiting for 8 sections to update their rosters. So please let me know if you have those completed, and I can make sure that our records are all up to date with those committee rosters. And then I wanted to let you know that the section financials were shared with you on the 8th of this month. Those are stored in your executive committee discussion libraries in Connect. And I wanted to remind you that those are the pre-audit draft financials. So once we are finished with the audit, we will send you the updated financials for the official year-end financial reports. And then for the annual meeting updates, we are currently working on putting together your AGU 24 event overviews. So these contain all of the your event details and your finances around AGU 24. When those are up to date or those are completed, I will upload those to Connect as well. And then I wanted to let you know we are currently working on your the section event planning form for AGU 25. We're working on those, and then once we have that completed, we will get the questions out to you and then the link to fill out that form, and make sure you have all the resources needed for that.
Great. Then why don't we turn it over to Lexi of our Government Relations Advocacy Group. I don't think we have a slide for it, so maybe just bring down the slides for now so we can.
I have a
Oh, do
couple
you have
slides to
something?
share if I
Okay.
could, yeah.
Great, thanks.
Give me just a half a second. Okay. Sorry. Okay, can folks see this?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I mean, I think I don't really need to tell everyone that there has been a lot going on in science policy in the US. And so one of the things that we're trying to do is find different ways of allowing the members of our community who want to speak out and importantly feel able to speak out to take part in a number of actions. If I have an extra minute, I'll do the slide about what we have been doing, but this is the important one. This is coming up on 3rd and 4th of June. We are inviting people to come to DC to meet with their legislators. We don't have a big budget for this. We're not expecting to have to do this. So we would ask for participants to arrange their own travel and lodging, but we will set up meetings for you. We will help you prepare. We've got a lot of resources. The one thing is that the deadline to apply for this is May 9th. And I'll drop the link in the chat here in a second. Whoops. But the main thing here, this is really just about talking about the importance of science and what the impacts of recent cuts or changes are. One of the things we are saying is that if you feel able to do this, not all of our community can, either for safety reasons or because of their own employment or whatever it is. And so if you do this, it's also a service to the broader community. So that next slide that you saw, so we have a whole lot of resources for this. Even before, we're going to be doing webinars to help prepare, but we have an FAQ online. We have a recording that we did from an earlier Days of Action webinar, and then we've got all kinds of online tools. I just want to say one thing, which is that, I talked about the fact that we've been doing stuff all along. So we've had online action that's still available. I keep updating the slide because people are still very actively emailing Congress. They're calling Congress. We have a group that's called Local Science Partners that sign up to do this on a regular basis. And they had a DC visit, and we had April Days of Action, which was focused on when members of Congress were back home in their states and districts. And these are just some of the results that we've had from some of those efforts. So I will stop sharing. I will drop into the link the website for this, and also put in my email. What I would ask is, We can get you language, but in addition to, if you feel interested or able to take part in this, doing this, if you could please share this opportunity with your communities as well. As I say, I'm happy to just like do a blurb or whatever it is. We're just trying to get the word out. We have a rough goal of about 100 people taking part in this. We have no idea. We've never done something like this, at large scale before, but so we set a goal of 100 and we want to see where we get to. That's it.
I just realized I was on mute. Does anyone have any questions for Lexi? We appreciate the information and all that you and the team have been doing to meet the moment, to coin a phrase. Any comments or questions on this or anything related to what Lexi's doing? Okay, so I guess we're at open mic. Any questions or comments or any more sharing folks would like to do about what you're doing as a section, what you want other folks to know about, kind of in the spirit of let's keep, have sections share with each other. Stephen.
Yeah, hi. I was on a call with a colleague in the UK this morning, and he basically said he wasn't coming to the AGU fall meeting because he basically didn't want to travel to the US. He'd been advised that if he did so, he should carry burner phones and laptops that had no information on them. Obvious question. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's come across this. Is there anything we AGU can do to address this problem?
I'm looking to see if there's anyone from the meetings team. I don't think so, but
Perhaps this is the wrong place to bring this up, but
No.
it seems important.
No, I mean, wherever you need to bring things up is fine. I think that AGU continues to have discussions, right, about the annual meeting and how people will interact, and we're getting feedback. I think that there's a poll that's going to go out soon to members, a pulse poll, asking members if they're going to be attending or not. So I think we're just at this point trying to gather more information in terms of people's intent with how they're going to show up or not at the meeting and go from there. But certainly lots of conversations. I and I'm sure others have heard similar feedback to what you've just said too. I don't know if others want to jump in with what they're hearing or anyone from the staff or any sections just want to share. Lexi.
Yeah, I mean, I gave a presentation to the meetings program committee last week just about kind of what's been going on in the US. And then that committee was also discussing very much what you were just describing, Stephen. The UK is just one of a set of countries that have issued advisories, expressing concern or advising not to come to the United States. So I know there are very active discussions about how AGU can provide the value and, ultimately what is the most important aspects of the meeting to capture in the face of, a lot of considerations, and then other than that, I will just say that my team is fighting as much as we can for people to understand the impacts of what's going on, not that we're necessarily going to be able to change it in the near term.
Yeah, thank you. Mike, I see your hands up, and also I just noticed that there's someone that says meetings department, but does not. I don't know who that is. Who's behind that item?
Sorry, Rosa, this is Nicole. I'm lurking. Sorry. I can't just add, but Leslie did a great overview, but I can just add that I know the meetings team is working to enhance our visa guidelines and our travel guidelines that will be on the website, that they're working on a draft on that now. And which will include guidance regarding international travel specifically.
Okay, thank you for that practical feedback, Nicole, and glad I saw you there. Sorry, sorry I missed you earlier. Mike.
Yeah, we just had a visitor from Canada who gave exactly the same thing, just to let people know it's not just the transatlantic thing, it's even right here across this border, that they were warned to bring burner electronic devices that did not have other material, and this person specifically arranged travel so that they were flying through places where they had friends in case things got held up. They could have a friend nearby. So yeah, this is a very real concern for many international AGU members and people in
Yeah.
our field.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other thoughts or comments on this or anything else in the next few minutes? Was today's meeting helpful? The information sharing around the section structure? Still, I'm going to keep taking temperature checks through all these monthly meetings to see what you all need. So yeah, okay, good. That's helpful. And again, to structure, I think I'm glad we did that poll. I have to tell you, my thought was I thought everyone would be jumping at the bit to lead a section call every other month. So I'm glad we took the poll, and we're glad to facilitate. So I'm glad we got that answer, and we will look at the feedback. I don't want to necessarily come up with a structure real time in the moment, but please look out for some communication from us before the next month's meeting. I forget when the next one is, but they're usually at the end of the month, because we may be taking you up on soliciting feedback, asking you to vote on topics based on the feedback we're synthesizing, but we need your help to help us shape that for the next month's meeting. So not knowing exactly what that will be, but you may get an email from Josh that Josh, Amber, and I kind of huddle over and figure out what it is that we want to ask you for the next meeting. So I'll put that out there. Anyone else want to say anything? Amber, Lexi, Josh, anyone? All right. Well, thank you. And hope this was helpful, but we want to keep making it helpful. So let us know how. See you soon.